All right. Hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Talking Investing. You're here with Tom and George. Hello, George.
Tommy. Hello, everyone.
All right.
What's the word of the day? Are you scared, Tom? Are you scared?
I'm not. I am not scared at all. The word of the day is red for the Bitcoin miners. Bitcoin's down a little bit, but I say the word is slow and steady from here on out. So
you're not scared. That's good.
None of this scares me at all. So we'll get into it. There's a bunch of press releases this week about some Bitcoin miners doing some stuff. So we got to talk about that. We got to talk about Ethereum. We'll talk about XRP, and obviously we'll talk about Bitcoin as always, among several other things. So we got a lot to go through, as we always do. So if you're new here, we talk about Bitcoin, we talk about the Bitcoin miners, we talk about the market, we talk about anything big that's happening overall. And we're here every Friday after the market closes. So if you would be so kind as to hit the like button. We're at 13 likes. We're going for 100 likes while we're live. That's our goal.
I was a little hurt this week. Mara let me down.
Well, we're definitely going to talk about Mara. They had a big announcement this week, and I bought. I'll tell you later what I bought, and I do this every time. And there's no such thing as a foolproof, but this is like one of the most successful strategies that I have, and it's just makes logical sense. So we'll go through that when we talk about what Marathon did later. And
more than 50% of my holdings are in Mara.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So you're
in stocks.
More than right. Obviously, your crypto is a different pool of money.
Yeah, different. Yeah. I hope Chris is like all over Mara. I hope you're right, buddy, because it hurt me. It was like I felt like a knife in the back this week. Just like, and I couldn't pull it out fast enough.
I viewed this as an unbelievable, obvious buying opportunity. It may end up being wrong, and I will, like I said, later we'll go through their press release. We'll go through what they did, and I'll tell you what I did about it.
Wow, Larry. Woo.
And I did buy one other thing this week.
Woo, Chris is wow. You guys more confident in Mara than I do.
Wow.
A lot of people like the Mara.
I think there's a lot of upside.
Well, and it's so funny because, like, in my mind, I always look at $100 when I figure out what Mara should be at some point in time, and that's $100 what I always come up with. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, I'm always in shock that no one else sees it but me. That Mara is going to go to 100.
Well, Martin, who's a member, pointed out Mara reports earnings after the bell on Tuesday. And so I already bought some on this dip. And if it dips more, I might buy some more, because I do think Marathon should have a huge pop off of earnings. It's clearly not priced in, and they're going to have phenomenal earnings. So... And they've got more going on past that. So they've got some press releases coming in the next 30 to 60 days. I think there's a bunch of catalysts for Marathon. This is not financial advice, as always, but I will tell you, I'm a buyer there. I think there's a lot more to come. And that's not the only one, right? There's a list of these that I think are very undervalued. There's a couple of these I would stay away from. There's a couple of them I think are fairly valued, but the majority of these I think are undervalued, somewhere between undervalued and extremely undervalued.
You got a good idea for a poll? I can do one.
Go for it.
The poll is, do you like Mara? No, I'm not gonna do that. This is the age-old poll.
I guess it's Chris is most of it in the chat, but this is a lot of positive stuff about Mara. Usually we get a lot of Mara haters. But
It's
it's
a real quick one, real quick poll.
quick poll.
What do you think about that one? Is Bitcoin going to 100,000 in the next 2 weeks?
Okay, so are
Yes or no?
we're talking about we're in the middle of a pullback. So the question is, are we at the end of the pullback, or is there more to go? And if so, are we going all the way down and retesting 100,000? So I'll go to the 1-day time chart just so that you guys can get a concept. It was not that long ago, right? We retested 100,000 on June 23rd. It's July 25th. So it's not like we got to go back 6 months in time. That was basically 1 month ago. We retested 100,000. So it's not out of the question. What I think is much more likely is a retest of 112,000. I'm not even sure we're going to do that, but that would in no way surprise me. 100,000, I will say I am not expecting it. But you can't be shocked, because if we do our thing, here was the all-time high on July 14th. So if I go from there down to our purple line just under 100, that's about 19%. So that's that 20% pullback that Bitcoin is absolutely infamous for. So we had 5 20% pullbacks last year. So certainly would be no surprise at all if we did go to 100. I just feel like there's so much momentum going on that this retest is going to end up in a higher place, in my opinion. Sour Melon Gaming, thank you for being a member for 29 months. Every period of consolidation like we're in ended with a sell-off, then we ripped to new highs. Calling next leg up within 2 weeks, 175K to 200K by the end of the year. Go Sour Melon Gaming. There's a lot more talk about 200K is the new, I would say, most talked about price target for Bitcoin by the end of this year. And it keeps popping up, and there's a lot of prominent people, you know, some of which are well-known Bitcoin bulls, so they're going to skew high. But I've seen numbers a lot higher than that for this run. All right, we're at 30 likes. Thank you guys for hitting the like button. If you just got here, or if you have not yet, press the thumbs up or the like button. It does help the stream out a lot in real time. People are getting lulled. People are getting lulled. We've been talking about this for months, and you know, you can see it on our Friday streams. I think I'm nervous for people that they're going to get caught out of the market when they should be in the market. So
84% say no. Bitcoin is not going to go to 100K in the next 2 weeks. Oh, that's a nice poll.
That's a very can you do me a favor? Can we do one? Let's substitute that for $112,000.
Okay.
But that was overwhelmingly so. We're not expecting a 20% pullback, is what you guys are saying, and I'm not either. But obviously, we got to acknowledge, like, none of us can sit here and be shocked if Bitcoin pulls back 20%. It did it 5 times last year. In what was an outstanding, Bitcoin was up 120% in 2024. And inside of that, it had 5 20+% pullbacks. So it certainly wouldn't be shocking, but I agree. I'm not expecting that. I am not expecting that. So time will tell. New poll, will Bitcoin go below 112,000 in the next 2 weeks?
I will tell you, Tom, that I did buy some more Bitcoin.
Nice.
When it got into like the 116 range, like where it is right now. So,
yeah, that's the question. Is this still a buy? And I just feel like we have so much to talk about today. Everything is pointing in the right direction, structurally speaking, and not just from what do you call it?
technical.
Thank you, George. I'm not I'm not talking about from a technical analysis. I'm talking about taking a step back, from 10,000 feet and looking down. Basically, every single catalyst that's on the way is a positive one for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So I think the end, I don't think we can even see the end from here. So the normal cycle would have us peaking somewhere in October or November of this year. That's been the pattern over, since the beginning of the Bitcoin halving cycles. However, yes, I think this time is different, and we're going to look at some reasons why that is. I don't expect at all for that to be the all-time high. We may peak there and have a retest, but I think we have all of 2026 and maybe even beyond for Bitcoin to continue to gain momentum. And let's see if I saved this.
As you do that, I have to say something that people were hypothesizing.
Yes, indeed.
And when they were hypothesizing, this is what somebody came up with. And you know what? It's not a crazy. It is a conspiracy theory, yes, but I'm going to tell you what it was. So with the wealth fund, what if they're making the tariffs be paid in Bitcoin? Would that help the wealth fund? And I was like, that's interesting. I never thought of that.
Yeah, I have not heard that they're doing that, but that would actually be great.
Yeah, but you haven't heard anything about the wealth fund. It's just that it's created. You haven't really heard anything else about it.
That's right.
And I think the tariffs are going into this wealth fund. And I'm hearing that there's going to be a basic income. And that's one of the big things that Trump's going to announce, which was crazy, but that's what everybody's been trying to get forever.
So here's an article. And this isn't even the point of the article, but it kind of shows what I'm talking about. Gordon Brown Redux. UK reportedly mulls sale of 5 billion pounds of Bitcoin. Facing a budget hole of perhaps 20 billion pounds, the country's home office is working with the police to perhaps sell Bitcoins of seized crypto, according to the Telegraph. But here's what I want to point out, and this seems like the exact same type of moment in time. If you go back in time, Led at the time by Gordon Brown, the UK's Treasury in the period from 1999 to 2002 famously sold about half of the country's gold reserves at what turned out to be a generational bottom of $275. Remember, gold's over $3,000 right now. So they sold half of their gold at $275. And I feel like this is one of those same, right? They're saying, look, now it's at $3,350. That's a 12x they missed out on by panicking and trying to cover 1 year's budget with, their gold reserve. And they should have been doing the opposite. And I think we're at another, and what my takeaway on that is, if you look at what gold did, and remember, gold's been around for thousands of years as a currency. Bitcoin is only now gaining massive adoption. So from 2002 until 2025, gold 12x'd. What do you think Bitcoin's going to do in the next 12 or 13 years? It's got a lot more upside, in my opinion, than gold did at that point. So it's an asset class. I guess what I'm saying is not every asset class goes through boom and bust and boom and bust, which is what the 4-year cycle has been, right? A blow off top and then a crypto winter. But I think and that's one of those things where we'll believe it when we see it. But I think that is over because there's just avalanche of catalysts that are going to be rolled out over a 2 or 3 or 4 or even 5-year period that's just going to keep bringing money into cryptocurrency. Let me find one other article because I think it goes right to this point. How's this poll looking?
It's looking okay. Kind of I would have figured this would be a 50-50 split. We're dialing in on that price.
Yeah, so a lot more people feel like maybe this is where we're headed. All right, I'll come back to that. I'm not finding the exact article that I want.
I've got a good poll now.
So that one, no one, but it was close. 55% thought, no, we're not even going to go retest 112. And if I go back to the 1 week, I mean, the reality is I've got a line here at $115,000, $115,200 that I think is some decent support until we break it. I think that remains support. And really, from a daily candle close, you know, today is going to be the lowest daily, unless something happens in the next few hours. It's going to be the lowest daily candle close in a couple of weeks, but it's still going to be, you know, we're at $117,000. This is a very comfortable trading range, right? Let me find.
So I said, will Bitcoin go to 95K in this cycle? That means this halving cycle. Halving cycles are every 4 years, give or take.
That's right. That's exactly right. And the theoretical end of this one, if we follow trend, will be somewhere in October or November. So you can see I just put a little box. Yeah, so you also don't think it's going to be this year. But that would be if the 4-year cycle follows along like it has in the past, the peak would be October of November of this year. And yes. And I don't believe that, and it sounds like you don't believe that.
No. There's just too much adoption. This is the first time I can say that there's just too much adoption.
There's right. And we still have a thank you, Sour Melon Gaming, for noting we still have a catalyst out there that is seismic. The Fed has been stubborn in not cutting rates. The rest of the world's rates are significantly lower than our central bank. And at some point, even if it's all the way until May, Jerome Powell's term ends in May of 2026. I don't suspect he'll still be in by then. I think he'll be gone. But even if he is, then that means he's done a series of rate cuts. And then the new person, I think, will accelerate them. And that is huge. Nothing's bigger for Bitcoin than lower interest rates, and along with some quantitative easing instead of quantitative tightening. Because remember, the Fed can print as much money as it wants, literally, right? It has a press printer and it can print trillions and trillions, however much it wants. It's been shrinking its balance sheet. And I think we're going to get into the other side of this. We've been risk off for 4 full years. That's one of the longest risk off stretches in the history of the stock market. Now, in that stretch, if you've been in the Big Seven, the Magnificent Seven, you know, you've killed it because those companies have done phenomenal. Big tech is on fire to the point where the new question is, are we in a big tech bubble right now? Because we now have multiple 2 billion, 3 billion, and we now have trillion. And we now have NVIDIA, which is now over a $4 trillion market cap, right? I mean, it's getting ridiculous. But the thing is, I read an article. I think I still have it here. AI mania is worse than 1999's. AI mania is worse than 1999's tech bubble, Apollo's top economist warns. A top Wall Street economist is sounding the alarm on sky-high valuations in AI stocks and drawing comparisons to the tech bubble of the late 1990s. Yes, AI will do incredible things for us all. Torsten Slok, chief economist at Apollo Global Management, said on Yahoo Finance. But doesn't mean I should buy. It doesn't mean I should be buying tech companies at any valuation. Of course, nobody ever thinks you should be buying anything at any valuation. But that is what was going on. And I want to find something this thing specifically said that it just got way wrong. And it's right here. According to Slok, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, the answer is increasingly no. In a research note to clients this week, he pointed to internal data showing the price to earnings ratio of the 10 largest companies in the S&P 500, many of them AI stock picks like Meta and NVIDIA, have eclipsed PE levels seen at the height of the dot-com bubble in 1999. So I'm going to tell you why that is a misleading and it's actually a ridiculous statement. And my guess, I have to believe this person knows this. Right now, the tech companies, so I agree, the tech companies are starting to trade at very high PE levels. So is there a bubble happening? Probably. Who knows how long it'll last? You guys know how this goes. This could last for another decade, right? You've got Microsoft in a 20-year upward trend. So, you know, what makes me believe that's going to stop tomorrow? But here's the trick in his words. The PEs are high. Okay, so in the dot-com bubble in 1999, there was not one of the top 20 dot-com stocks that had any profit. So they didn't have a PE ratio. They were losing $1 billion. Some of them were losing $1 billion on $1 billion revenue. Some of them were losing $2 or $3 billion on less than $1 billion revenue. Some of them had no revenue and they were losing billions of dollars. So you can't compare PEs across time. And by the way, most of those companies did one of two things: had a 95% pullback or went out of business within the next year. So, you know, you take those 20 companies, and Microsoft's the only one that didn't have a 95% pullback. It had a 75% pullback, and that turned out to be the buying opportunity of a generation. So the rest of those companies, it's unfair, right? Amazon, look at what Amazon's done. But Amazon was losing money in 1999 and 2000. Obviously, now they're making money hand over fist. They were long. Amazon, I think, has 600x'd since after the dot-com crash until now. So this article is talking about a crash similar to that. And it's just not going to compare to that. You're not going to see NVIDIA crash 95%. It's not happening. You're not going to see Microsoft crash 95%. You're not going to see Apple crash 95%. You take all the top. That doesn't mean you won't maybe see a big pullback and the bubble burst and maybe these things go back. You know, instead of forever going up in the right direction, maybe they have a 20 or 30 or 40% pullback, which would be, you know, that would be dramatic. But what happened in this 1999 tech bubble, to even compare it to that, is ridiculous. So that's my take on that, for whatever it's worth. I mean, who here thinks NVIDIA is going down 95%? What were you saying, George?
You see my hand?
George!
I don't think I mean, you know what's crazy? At some point in time, it probably will.
You think it will go down 95%?
I think at some point in time, I think every stock has its day, and I think every company outlasts its usefulness. And you know, they rotate out You know,
Well,
I
if
don't
you
expect it to happen anytime soon,
if you're
but you know, technology changes so quickly. And here's a great example, Tom. Eastman
yes,
Kodak's out of business, okay,
uh,
basically.
right, they still exist, but
You
in
know,
some 1% of what they used to be form.
exactly. And if you would have, and I said this in the 80s when I was a little stupid kid in high school. I said, Eastman Kodak is going to go out of business. And you know what? They all said what Tom said.
And
No.
but I will put a qualifier on what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we're not in a that tech bubble, that down 95%, that happened in 3 months.
Oh yeah, that's not going to happen.
And that's what I'm saying. Yes, you're right, George. Ultimately, companies outlive their usefulness. Now, some companies adapt, and I'll give you a great example. IBM has 100% changed all of its revenue stream. It's still one of the 50 biggest companies in the world, and it has 100% changed where all of its revenue comes from. So you can't, so it did what Eastman Kodak failed to do. They banked on technology that was becoming obsolete, and they had nothing. You know, they had nothing in the pipeline. They had no diversification, massive. And this is when we talk. You'll hear on this channel, we often talk about concentration of risk. Right? I mean, that's something we talk about. If 90% of your revenue comes from one customer, if 90% of your revenue comes from one revenue stream, all those things represent risk. The accounting standard is 10% of your revenue is from the same customer. It represents a concentration of risk. Never mind, 90 or 100.
How would you play Bitcoin right now I mean, hypothetically, would
Hypothetically
you
speaking,
buy and sell, or would you just hold it and just be what it's a store of value?
I'm a buy and hold on the cryptocurrencies I believe in. And so, no, I wouldn't. Now, here's what I might consider doing. Let's say Bitcoin runs up to 175. I might buy some puts. I'm not going to sell my Bitcoin ever. But I may buy some puts. Yeah. Yeah, and then I'd buy some puts through IBIT and put some protection on because, like we've just talked about, this is a volatile space. Although the volatility is getting less and less, there's massive conversation about the drastically reducing volatility in Bitcoin, not necessarily the altcoins, but in Bitcoin. The Bitcoin and the VIX, which is the volatility index of the equity stock market, hit an 88% correlation. That's the all-time high in history. So it's starting to trade, and this goes right to what I'm talking about, why I don't think there's going to be a crypto winter. This is a store of asset value, and adoption has only just begun. We're 1% into adoption. And that's a giant difference from the last cycle where we were 0%. It was all retail and retail FOMO in every previous cycle. The majority of what's going on here is not, we haven't even had retail step in yet. And they're going to do the wrong thing. They're going to chase it at 180,000. And that's, unfortunately, that tends to be what happens. And Soda Head said, I remember when Bitcoin was $1,000 per coin. Right. I mean, who would have thought if we all knew then what we know now, right? Everybody would have been buying Bitcoin. Right. And it was a lot lower than 1,000. Bitcoin is like 1,000,000x or 13 million x, something like that. It's the best return on investment in the history of any investment ever. And it's not even close. Larry's saying we have to consider what AI is doing to companies. So AI is a very complicated. The the ramifications of what is going to happen with AI is very complicated. It's obviously AI is having its moment right now. It's the number one thing talked about. It's here. Well, actually, it's not here. So I'll just, as an aside note, there actually technically is no artificial intelligence, or what they're now rebranding as AGI, artificial general intelligence. That does not exist. But we do have a broad number of programs that we refer to as AI. But understand, that's a misnomer, and it's mislabeled. There is actually no AI in existence on this planet anyway.
Well, and thank you for saying that, Tom, because I can't even use freaking Siri on my phone. And I'm like, if AI exists, you think Siri could be a lot better on my freaking phone? Largest freaking company in the world, or close to it.
Yes, well, it was for 10 years. Now it's second.
You know what I mean? Because I don't know. It goes, hey, Siri, and it goes, shut up.
Well, that's just not right at all.
Hey, Siri, tell me how to get here. F you. I think I got a bad Siri.
You might. That's right. Your version of Siri might be taking something personally.
Wouldn't that be funny? There's a good little app to make. Call it the New York Siri.
It would be, they would have to use the F-bomb then.
Yeah, what the hell are you thinking, man?
No, but AI is going to be, we're going to be talking about this for a long time. But I will tell everybody, and many of you on the stream are of age similar to myself and George. So, you know, this isn't our first trip around. I know some of you are even older and wiser. And I've seen so many of these things that are supposed to be, I'll give you for instance, the computer itself, the PC, the laptop on everybody's desk, that was going, the computer's going to replace people. We're going to, tens of hundreds of millions of jobs will be lost. We do more work now than we used to without computers. We didn't lose one job due to computers. They're a tool, but be honest, if you look at your business life, depending on what business you're in, you're running multiple programs. It takes a massive amount of time, and a lot of them are great programs and they do a great job, but they don't eliminate jobs. They just don't. They may make us better at what we do. They're good assistants, and AI is trying to work towards that. And it already, if you understand its limitations, it's already a very good tool to use in certain specific instances. But if you trust it as a truth teller, then you're making a big mistake, because AI systems, just ask it, and it will ask any AI system, and the first thing it will tell you is, I don't know right from wrong. I don't know if my answer is right or wrong. And there are many times when there's an industry term called hallucination. And that's when these AIs actually just make up facts. They make up, like in legal instances, they've made up cases, X versus Jones, that never happened. They don't exist, and they refer to them as.
Well, now, Tom, this gets a little deep. Supposedly they're cross-dimensional, so they don't exist in this dimension of reality.
So that case was from another dimension.
Yes. So it's another dimension.
Wait till they hook up the AI machines to the quantum computers. Then we're in big trouble.
Yes, you got it. So it's another dimension. So you know what I mean?
I've been testing my AI, and I've been digging in and doing a lot of research. And I can tell you, I have 50 examples. What I've been doing is giving it movie quotes and telling it to guess the movie. And it will come up with elaborate movie scenes. It'll say, I know what that's from. It's from this. And here's the scene. And it explains an elaborate scene. that's not in the movie. It's just totally made up. It never happened. It doesn't exist. I have a dozen examples of them. What were you saying, George?
It's George Costanza.
That's right. Exactly.
They embellish it, make it sound like it's real, but it's just not real.
Well, that's the danger, because it's with such authority and with such specific details as it outlining these scenes that it wouldn't occur to you that this didn't even exist. None of this ever happened.
You know what is funny? I mean, I'm sorry, and I know this is off the beaten path, but can you imagine going on whatever these sites are, like Tinder or however you hook up nowadays, and you could just ask AI to talk to this chick for you?
You could. People probably do it.
I guarantee there's an AI model out there for that. How you doing? Good. How are you? What's going on? These guys, they're talking to 6 or 7 hoes. I mean, girls, and not ever right. You know what I mean?
You've always got to be.
Oh, you're so sweet. You're so fine, so nice and thoughtful. Then they go and they meet him. They're like, man, you're disgusting.
Boy, you really talk different in person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be careful what you're getting. It's no different than investing in stocks. If you get information from any of the major AI or they're really large language models, they're predictive models. They're just predicting what the next word is going to be. And they're so good at it that it sounds completely coherent. You really can't distinguish it from a conversation with a human being. And because it's a computer, your default is to trust that if it is saying something this explicitly with this much authority in this much detail, it must be true. And I'm just telling you, there's a reasonable chance it is not true at all. And that doesn't mean it's wrong about everything. There's certain things it's great at. There's certain things they got a long way to go. So I won't dwell on that. But it's the original point is it's not going anywhere. We're going to be dealing with these products more and more and more across every industry. But I will say, I don't really think it's going to affect cryptocurrency in any way. And first, I'm going to ask anybody that just got here, or if you haven't, if you could please, we're at 58 likes. Thank you, everybody. If you could hit the thumbs up or hit the like button, it does help the stream out a lot in real time, and it is much appreciated. So the thing that goes hand in hand, and I kind of mentioned it a few minutes ago, is quantum computing. So that's really not what anybody thinks it is either. So I would caution everybody on their sky is falling quantum computing fears, because there's no working quantum computers on the face of this earth, and we are years from doing the things they talk about doing. And it does pertain to cryptocurrency, because what they're talking about is there's something called Shor's algorithm that a quantum computer would be able to use that a regular computer, it would not be practical to use. And that would be potentially, theoretically, in a well-working, a machine that maybe could exist 10 or 15 years from now if we do a good job and stay on track. That Shor's algorithm could potentially break wallets, right? Encrypted wallets. So that's the only thing. There's nothing that any of these things can do, particularly specifically. There's nothing, no amount of advancement in quantum computing that can affect the Bitcoin blockchain. In fact, if you project forward to the best case scenario, strongest quantum computing machine, 15 years from now, assuming everything goes right, that machine still won't be able to, on its own, it wouldn't be able to, on the average, solve a block, right? And blocks get solved by the network every 10 minutes. It would take a day and a half. And that's with a machine that we're 15 years away from making. It would take a day and a half to solve a block. So I suppose it could participate and randomly get some from time to time, but we're forever away from quantum computing. Quantum computing gives, based on how the Bitcoin block works, there is no inherent advantage that a quantum computer has over a regular computer. So that will never be a fear. The fear is it will crack encryptions on wallets. So I just want to make that, kind of put that out there for everybody who's worried. And I see every single week, I don't bring them up anymore, but every single week I see multiple articles about how it's already too late. They've already got your data, and now, you know, as soon as the technology catches up, they're going to take all your Bitcoin and yada, yada, yada. So for me, that's not something that I think is on the horizon. Never mind imminent. Digress. So let's take a look at what the Bitcoin miners did this week. And then we got some press releases to go through because there was some big news out of some Bitcoin miners this week. But let's take a look at performance first, because I got a feeling a lot of you feel like this was a bad week because it ended with a couple of very kind of disappointing days, including if you look at this board, Core Scientific's up 0.5%. Bitfarms is green only because it's 0. It stayed exactly the same. And everything else is red. But, you know, Marathon was down 0.06%. Riot down 1%. Now, CleanSpark they might have been the worst one today. Down 4.2%, IREN 2. So 2%, 3%, that seemed to be what everything was down. And Bitcoin was down about 2% on the day from yesterday's close as well. So, you know, it wasn't the greatest day. It was not the greatest day to end the week. But I'll tell you, you guys know there's times where Bitcoin's down 2% and the Bitcoin miners are down 10%, 12%, 15%, 20%. We've been living that. That part of the program, I believe, has ended. And we're in the opposite. So let's go look at the numbers. So here's what happened on the week. So you'll see. And these got flipped around, so this should actually be yellow. That is Bitcoin. That is IREN. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 in the red. We have IREN that performed equally with Bitcoin. We have TeraWolf. We have actually all the rest of them outperformed Bitcoin. Some of these guys had decent weeks. Was this a week to write home about? You know, nobody doubled their money or anything. But look, Bitfarms was up 18% this week. And I'm going to tell you why that's extremely significant. BitDR up 7%. Riot up 5%. I mean, Riot is just slow and steady. They have been methodically doing extremely well over the last 100 days. Core Scientific 3%, Hive 2%, CIFR 2%. So, you know, not a lot to see here, but not a bad week. I mean, most of the Bitcoin miners were green this week. Now, Marathon was down 12%. I'm going to explain why that is next. CleanSpark was down 8%. I have no explanation for that. So I did what I told our members what I was going to do. If CleanSpark got below $12, I was buying some. And it got below $12, which is staggering to me. There was no reason for CleanSpark to be an outlier this week and have a bad week. It's when they report earnings, when they report their monthly operational report. This stock, to me, this is one of the most undervalued stocks, in my opinion. So I haven't bought in a long time because Bitfarms and CleanSpark, those were the two stocks I fixated during the crypto winter on really building out very big positions in. Now, they've performed very differently since then. Bitfarms is having a good week now, and they're starting to catch up. And, you know, I hold positions in Marathon and Riot and IREN as well. And recently I've bought some Hive and some BitDR. So I'm pretty diversified amongst the ones that I think are going to be the winners. Like I said, I don't think every single one of these is going to win, but this is a good week. And then if we look at July, right, we're getting near the end of the month of July. This is a very good month. Bitcoin's up 8%, so that's a nice steady week. We'll talk about Core Scientific had a specific reason. It's an outlier, and this number now becomes pretty much meaningless from now on. So Core Scientific received a buyout bid from CoreWeave, and once everybody did the math, all right, this was a buy the rumor, sell the news. So Core Scientific, on rumors that they were going to get a purchase offer, went through the roof. But they overshot a little, and so they've corrected. And that's all that's going on there. It's got nothing to do with anything else. I want to get to Jeff. Thank you very much for the super chat. Very generous. Apologies, I'm about 30 minutes behind. When do we start also evaluating Bitcoin charts again against other things besides USD, i.e. gold, Mag 7 bonds, homes? Those charts are telling. Bitcoin reprices everything. Well, that's true. I mean, and really deep in what Jeff's alluding to is, are we moving, and this isn't going to be today and it's not going to be tomorrow, but are we moving into a future where Bitcoin is the reserve currency? So and I have an article. Let's go to that. Chart of the week: Hyperbitcoinization may not be just maximalist fantasy anymore. As the Bitcoin price, and this is about 10 days old, as the Bitcoin price breaks records and institutional demand ramps up, the once theoretical endgame of hyperbitcoinization is starting to look more like a macro trend than just a crypto dream. Bitcoin is trading at record highs, and major institutions are increasingly investing in it, suggesting a shift towards potential hyper-Bitcoinization. The concept of Bitcoinization is gaining traction beyond crypto enthusiasts, with discussions about national Bitcoin reserves and crypto's role in financial infrastructure. The ownership of Bitcoin is shifting from individuals to companies and governments, indicating a potential move towards a Bitcoin-dominated economy. And then just to define, hyper-Bitcoinization, an almost apocalyptic term invoking end-of-days fiat collapse and Bitcoin's parabolic rise to global reserve status. And then they say, is increasingly being discussed in more serious circles. So this is not a prediction on my part, but this is being discussed. This was right. I mean, the Bitcoin maximalists always felt this was inevitable, but nobody really took this serious. 4 years ago in the Bitcoin cycle, there was not one person outside of the retail crypto people that believed in a scenario like this. Now we've taken 50 big steps towards this. Now, this isn't going to happen overnight. I think this would take decades to get to the end game of something like this. But the more, the more adoption, the Bitcoin supply is fixed and it's small, and the amount on chain continues to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So there's every reason to believe we could be in a very long-term bull market for Bitcoin. Let's do a poll. See who agrees and disagrees. Sour Mountain Gaming, quickly. IREN is going to be the next CoreWeave. $50 billion market cap. Yeah, so that's a great, because there's not a lot of things to compare to. But that's a great comparison. Because CoreWeave is basically all high performance computing. And, they had a multi-billion-dollar contract with Core Scientific. So at some point they just said, why are we renting all this space when we could buy it? So they just put in an offer to buy the whole company. And And that company is a $50 billion market cap company. You've got Marathon now in the $6.5 billion market cap range, and that's the biggest one. This one, CoreWeave's bigger than all the Bitcoin mining companies' market caps put together, which makes no sense. So, when you look at it and go, well, through dilution, have we just gotten to market caps that are wildly out of control? A lot of these stocks haven't even gotten back to the market cap that they were at in the previous bull market when they had 1 exahash or 2 exahash. And now we're talking companies with 3 companies that have 50 or more exahash. That's 50 times as much. So all that tells me there's room to the upside. That's all I would say about that. What were we? I was just going to do a poll. Okay. So, simple question. Do you think Bitcoin is in a multi-year, and I'm talking about a larger trend? So understand, inside of a bull market, we get pullbacks all the time. So I'm not saying there's never going to be a 20% pullback. I'm not saying there's never going to be a 30% pullback. We just got one of those not too long ago. But if we look at year over year over year, is Bitcoin going to keep going up every year for several years from now? Are we in a multi-year bull market where, in 2023, it went up dramatically from 2022. In 2024, it went up dramatically from 2023. In 2025, it's gone up dramatically from 2024. Is that going to happen again in 2026? Is that going to happen again in 2027? That's really as far out as I'm talking about going. That would be far. That would break the 4-year cycle, and it would be by far the biggest Bitcoin bull market in history. And my answer to that, not that anybody cares, is yes. I do think that's what's happening right now. What do you make of that, George?
I don't know what to make of that, Tom.
Where's Bitcoin going to be 2 years from now?
I don't know. It could be anywhere. As long as it's not at $117,000.
It could be anywhere. You have no gut feeling on.
I'm going to tell you, I'm not getting out or anything, but it really honestly could be anywhere. In 2 years from now is going to be a very interesting time, Tom. The country's going to be looking at, hiring a new president in the United States. There's so much uncertainty, but I would expect it to be a lot higher than what it is,
I'm right. By 2027, 2028 is an election cycle. So the talk is going to start again in the United States about because we're getting a different president regardless. So, so yes, that will start to dominate the conversation at the second half of 2027 and all of 2028.
What is so funny to me about politics right now, Tom, and of course, we don't talk politics on this channel.
Yes.
But what's funny, if you agree with this statement, though, is how both sides on either side think like if their party's not in charge, that the end of the world's coming.
Yeah, it's a very polarized situation.
Yeah.
In my lifetime, I've never seen anything this polarized. And
it's crazy.
The rhetoric, I think the media has a lot. They love it. It's good for business. And, we never had these 24 hours a day, 7 days a week news cycle companies trying to make money in the past. So we're just living in a different world. And I think it lends itself to this polarization. And I hope that we can rise above it and move towards, the way conversations used to happen.
I gotta give a shout out to Hulk Hogan. He will be missed. I love that man. He was my idol. I ain't gonna lie.
Yes, Hulk Hogan passed away. So,
This was a rough week.
yes.
What was his name?
Malcolm Jamal Warner passed away.
He felt like he was my brother. You know what I mean? I mean, seriously.
Anybody our age grew up with him. He was the oldest son on the Cosby Show. So, you know, if you're of a certain age, it's like George just said, you know, you felt like you knew these people. And I understand you didn't really, but
I just can say one thing. Would you like some Jello pudding?
Yeah, Bill Cosby's still alive.
Yeah, I know.
Well, and Malcolm Jamal Warner was a fluke accident. He got caught in a riptide and drowned. So it's just one of those things. It's a tragedy.
I won't say my joke.
That's probably best.
Get in trouble. Oh, yeah, that's right. Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh, Ozzy Osbourne passed away this week as well. You're right.
Yeah, thanks, Midway. That was I mean, that one didn't really bother me as much. You know what I mean? But, you know, he was an icon to a lot of people.
He was foundational in hard rock music and or heavy metal.
He was larger than life.
Yeah, and as a figure, he was larger than life, whether you liked him or you didn't like him. And
right.
So we lost a lot of people this week, or at least some high-profile people. And
I hear Bruce Willis is on the way out too. He's not doing well.
I didn't hear anything specific recently, but I know his mental health has been deteriorating significantly for years now.
Yippee-ki-yay.
That's one of my personal favorite movies is Die Hard.
Oh, is it really? Oh, wow.
Absolutely.
Sorry, this has been a rough week for me. I got back to a major number and I was going to sell all my crypto stock, but I didn't do it, and I wish I would have.
Well, let's see what happens, because we just look. If you looked, remember, I'm going to go back to it right now and revisit it. This was this week. This week was not a disaster. We were pretty level, and if you happen to have a couple of stocks, you were up. Now, your biggest stock had a bad week. And I'm going to tell you what happened, and I'm going to tell you what I did about it. And this happens every time. And like I said, no strategy is perfect, but this has been one of the most successful strategies of my investing career, because it's just a simple matter of doing the math. So let's go to talk about what Marathon did. Marathon Holdings announced pricing of upsized, so this got bigger and bigger, upsized $950 million offering of a 0% convertible unsecured, all input, it's not there, senior note due in 2032. So this is not due until 2032. And by the way, there's an option for an extra $200 million, which will be taken because they're always taken. So this will be well over a $1 billion raise in money. So what did the stock do on this? It was down like 12 to 14% that day. It finished the week down 12%. Now here's the thing. That means if the dilution's about 10%, right? Because effectively this is convertible debt. Ultimately in the year 2032 will probably end up being dilution. It's unlikely they'll pay this back, although maybe they will. So, but people look at it as dilution. If your stock's diluted 10%, but your stock price goes down 12%, then the market cap, that means somebody just gave you $1 billion and the market cap of your company went down. And this happens virtually every single time somebody does a convertible debt or an at-the-market offering. And almost every single time, sometime in the next short period of time, I bought some September calls. So that only gives me 2 months. But I think it will make up all the ground it lost and significantly more. This is pure manipulation. There is no logic behind a company getting, let's say Marathon started at 0. That means now they have $1 billion in the bank, but they're worth less money. Because that's what happened. They're getting $1 billion and their market cap went down. Forget stock price. The market cap went down. The stock price went down so much that the market cap went down. And it shouldn't even be even. The market cap shouldn't be the same. It should go up. And you know what they're going to do with this money. They've got a few little things earmarked. They're going to go buy Bitcoin. They already have 50,000 Bitcoin. They're already going to have $1 billion profitable quarter this June 30th. And they're reporting, I think, next week. So, there's your billion right there. Right? They just made $1 billion on the Bitcoin they own. Now they just borrowed another $1 billion to buy more Bitcoin. So this is where you've got to have conviction and you've got to be able to see the big picture, because and I look for these even in industries that, I have a lot of watch lists. And obviously I focus on the companies we talk about by and large, but I keep my eye on a lot of these stocks because almost every time this exact same pattern occurs. It's missed a couple of times. I'll tell you, Arrow is a company that I invested in many years ago that I implemented this strategy, and that was a miss. So it's not perfect. It's not 100%, but it is a very successful strategy because there's really what that means is people think Marathon's a bad company and what they're going to do with that $1 million is wasted. That's what the market is pricing in. But I know what they're going to do with it. For everybody who doesn't know, and I'm sure all of you already do, they're going to buy Bitcoin with it. So if you're bullish on Bitcoin, then they get to pay 0 interest for the next 6 years and buy $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. That's what's going on with Marathon. In a week where it was the worst performer of the week, it was an outlier. It was down 12% when it probably should have been up 1 or 2 or 3%. So, that's potentially a 15% swing because they did this. And
when do they get the money?
They got it.
Wow.
They got it. So the next thing that'll happen is you're going to get a big press release. Hey, we just bought 6,000 Bitcoin. What do you think the stock's going to do on that day? And then you get another release because they're not going to buy it all at once. Then, and in between those releases, you're going to get a quarterly 10Q that says, oh, by the way, on top of all that, we made $1 billion this quarter. So I'm looking at a lot of positive catalysts on Marathon in the next 60 days.
So that could really be an amazing thing.
Anything, if that doesn't run, in my mind, then somebody is going hard and investing significant money to manipulate the price down. That's my opinion. None of this is ever financial advice. You guys got to have your own conviction. We talk about this all the time. You cannot borrow somebody else's conviction. If you haven't done some amount of due diligence and you don't have a deep belief in a stock, as soon as it has a bad week, like Marathon, most people, you can see, they did this. Most people panicked and sold. It's down 12%. That's an outlier among the Bitcoin miners. So that means that most people who held this stock didn't really understand what they do, and they panic sold. Jeff, thank you for the super chat. Supermarket watch list, SFM. And I will tell you, Jeff's been telling us for years the supermarkets are a good play, and they have been a good play. They're in a multi-year bull market. SFM, VLGEA, KR, WMK, IMKTA. So you guys can check those out on your own if you're interested. But I know when Jeff started buying those because he told us, and he's up significantly on those. So those have been
a really good story. He says, talking about calls, they're explode at my strike price when I get my call. So I did that with CleanSpark. CleanSpark didn't move for, what was that, the beginning of 23, Tom?
Yeah.
And CleanSpark was like, it was in a range like you would not believe.
It was sideways for what felt like forever.
And I took a 6-figure position. My first time ever. I told Tom I didn't care, right? Didn't I kind of like sell it long, Tom?
You sold covered calls on your position, $1 out of the money, because this thing hadn't moved up over that price in 6 months. So what happens? It maybe 3 days? It was up $5, $6, $7 in 30 days.
Oh my goodness. And so I got out of it with like, I don't know, a $40,000 loss. But here's the most important thing I got to tell you. By the time it was up, it wouldn't have cost me anything. It wasn't even at the price that I sold my options at. That's
exactly right. In the middle, and I understand at some point you cut your losses because it's killing you. But if he had held them to expiration, they would have expired out of the money, and it would have cost him nothing. That's why it's very hard when you're selling. Buying calls is one thing. Selling calls is very beyond intermediate, and selling puts is advanced.
Guys, when I say it was a shit ton of money. I was down at one point in time. Oh my God, I'll never forget it in my life. I don't think I could do it again. That one messed me up, guys. It really did.
But you know what? This is everybody, not necessarily to that extent, but everybody on here probably has, this. You learn investing through the school of hard knocks. You can read all the books you want about it. You learn by making every mistake until you made that mistake and felt that pain and learned that lesson. You got to go through the learning curve yourself. So it's a part of the journey. So if you're brand new or if you're recently new, it gets better. You do learn along the way. You learn how to, avoid certain pitfalls. You look for certain things that work more often than they don't. And that's all you're looking for. No one's going undefeated in this thing. So don't expect every trade to be a winner, but you got to win more than you lose.
What did you say the average return is for a retail investor, Tom?
I don't know what the average return for a retail investor is. If I had to guess, it's probably negative. They almost certainly underperform just had they put their money in SPY, which is just the S&P 500. JD, selling puts are easy wins until a black swan hits. Well, here's the problem. I agree with that amongst blue chip stocks, but in Bitcoin stocks, these things can go down 20% in one day, right? It happens they can go up 20% in one day as well. With stocks that have this level of volatility, while Bitcoin itself is becoming less volatile than it ever has been, the Bitcoin miners are not. They've been all over the place this year. And if we let's look at year to date, because they're starting to be in a much better place. This was a disaster. And I'm going to go back to April and show you where we were after I show you where we are right now. So this is year to date. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 companies are in the green year to date. After the first week of April, all of these companies were in the red, between down 20%. One was down 20%. The rest were down between 30 and 70%. So here we are now just 90 days later, and we have companies that were down 30 or 40 or 50 or 60%. You now have TeraWulf up 136%. Core Scientific, and that's kind of locked in, everybody. This Core Scientific is now just a proxy trade for CoreWeave. So, that's probably about where it's going to be, but that's up 153%. BitDeer's up 120%. Bitcoin's up 122% this year. It's up more already this year than it was all year. Oh, no, sorry. I'm on the wrong chart. I got to take that back. This is 2024, because I was going to say that looks just like what that did last year. So 122% was 2024. Let me correct myself and go to this year's year to date. So last year was a mixed bag. A little more than half green, still a bunch in the red, and these aren't a little bit in the red, right? In 2024 was a bad year. Bitfarms down 49%, Hive down 37%, Riot down 34%, Bit Digital, which isn't even a Bitcoin miner anymore, Marathon down 29%, but we did have some good performers. So yeah, because Bitcoin's not up anywhere near that this year. If we go to year to date this year, so Bitcoin outperformed all but 2 Bitcoin miners in the year 2024. That's not a good year. If you're going to be taking the much higher risk in owning a Bitcoin miner, you should be getting a much higher reward when the underlying asset is thriving, which in a year up 122%, that is thriving. So we got ripped off last year. But I'm going to go now I will go to this year. Sorry for the head fake. Okay, here's this year to date. So this is starting to shape up. So like I said, I'm going to show you what this was 90 days ago. And it was a catastrophe. It was nothing short of a disaster. We now have Bitcoin up 25%, having a solid year. We're a little more than halfway through the year. That's a nice year, right? We're down off of our all-time high from a couple of weeks ago, but still nice. IREN is now up 80% this year. That is drastically outperforming Bitcoin, but that's actually what we want to see. That's the type of ratio we're looking for. 2 or 3 to 1 performance versus Bitcoin because of the amount of risk that we're taking. So you've got Riot, which is that's a very quiet company. We never hear anybody, there's never hype around Riot, but look what it is doing this year. It's up 42%, CIFR 39%, CleanSpark 28%. So CleanSpark did not have a great week this week. It was underperformer, but on the year, it is outperforming Bitcoin. Marathon is still in the green. After it was down 12% this week, it's still in the green, up 3% year to date. And then we go red, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But you've got BitDeer in the red, down 32%. I want to take a look at Bitfarms, down 17% right now. And I'm going to show you where all this was 3 months ago. This is the identical chart, but this is on April 4th. Bitfarms down 48%, Core Scientific 49%, Hive 51%, TeraWulf 54%, CIFR 55%, BitDeer 63%. The best one on the whole chart was CleanSpark, down 21%. After that, it went to Riot, down 30%. So this is what I'm saying. Like the first 3 months of the year, and it was really February and March, they were nothing short of catastrophic. But then it turned. So you can see now we're halfway through the year, and half of these stocks are green. And I would be hard pressed to say that anybody would have believed that on Friday, April 4th, or Tuesday, April 8th, when we called the bottom on our members only live stream. I think anybody would have been hard to believe that even one of these was going to be in the green. Never mind, half of them are now in the green. And I think we're going to go up from here. So we've come a long way from this chart, which is averaging around down 50% to this chart. where you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 companies outperforming Bitcoin. You've got IREN up 80%. That's now my biggest position. And it's not the one I invested the most in. It's just my biggest position because it's up so much. So I think this is progress. So let's get to what some specific companies did this week. We talked about what Marathon did. So, you know, they're going to have $1 billion in the bank over that, and they're going to spend a significant chunk of that buying Bitcoin, is my guess. I don't know if it'll be all at once or in stages. We'll see what happens, but that's what they're doing. So that's what's going on there. But there's other companies that had some news this week. I'm going to go because I think this is a couple of things happened with Bitfarms that I think are very significant. Number one, Bitfarms announces corporate share buyback program. So under the program, the company is authorized to purchase up to 49,943,000 of its common shares, representing up to 10% of the company's public float. So they've announced a buyback potentially of up to 10% between now and July 27th, 2026. Now, they're not obligated to do this. They have the option to do this. And their stock was so stupidly undervalued. I've been talking about 2 stocks that are just, in my mind, made no sense at being valued significantly less than their book value. And this is one of them. So what they do about it, after getting a beating for the last year, they finally stepped in and did something and said, hey, if you guys aren't going to buy our stock, we'll buy it because this price is stupid. Number 2, this came out on Wednesday. This is Riot updating, right? They have to file with a 13D with the SEC as they continue to sell stock. They filed a 144 with the SEC. They had almost 91 million shares of Bitfarms stock in what, in my opinion, was a very ill-advised hostile takeover attempt. So that landed them with somewhere just under 91 million shares. They filed with the SEC. It was their intent to sell all of those shares in a reasonable time frame. Well, here we are. So Bitfarms volume was getting lower and lower and lower. There were days where it was under 6 million shares a day. So if you're a company that's got to unload 90 million shares into in a company that's trading 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 million shares a day, that's a big problem. So this looked like a train wreck coming. But for whatever reason, if we go look at Bitfarms, so let me refresh this. So today, Bitfarms volume, 20 million. Their average is 19. And I'm just going to quickly show you some historical data. Look at this run. 41 million, 60 million, 44 million. Right? That gives you a lot of opportunity. 30 million, 20 million. So now all of a sudden, Riot has an opportunity to sell. You can sell into a very high volume day. When we were back, you know, how far back? And when we were back here, this is the end of June, 5.9 million shares, 6.5 million shares. You can't sell into that, right? This thing was down at 79 cents and it got worse than that. This tested at one point, right here we were in April. So on April 8th, this was at 67.5 cents. So it looked to me like there was every reason to believe that the sell pressure was enormous, the volume was low, and this was going to be a catastrophe. I deeply considered trading this stock, selling it, but I didn't do it. And here's what's happened. So let me go back to this press release. Riot now owns 46 million shares. So they've sold half their shares. They now own 8.3%, and they used to own like 16.4 or 16.6% of the company. So they've already sold half their shares. And in the time they did that, the stock has had a huge run up, not down. So to me, that was the one worry I had with Bitfarms, because trading at 0.6 its book value, to me, it seems stupidly undervalued. But with that selling pressure on it, I was disturbed and I was concerned. And they have changed their business model. They've had to make major changes. They're not the same company they used to be. But I think that this danger of dropping off a cliff as Riot gets rid of these shares, I think that danger's over. Half their shares are gone, and the daily volume is increasing. So I think this really, really changes the picture of where Bitfarms is at. So in a period, if we go back and look at July, right, I was looking to sell my Bitfarms at the end of June. So I would have been buying, I would have missed this 46% run up, and I would have been buying Hive was high on my list. I would have been buying Hive, Marathon, which is up 18%. Or sorry, 10%. Marathon's up 10% versus 46%, and a few others. But you can see it was the number one performer. So that's conviction. Somebody brought up the fact. Thank you, Robert Anderson. 127 watching, only 74 likes. Do us a favor, we're at 81 likes. If you could hit the like button, the thumbs up button. We've only twice ever not gotten 100 likes during a live stream. So let's make it happen.
It's funny how when Bitcoin isn't, like, I wouldn't say it's not doing well, but when things are like not, the pressure isn't on, how bad the streams are.
People get lulled and people have moved away. And this is
so sad.
This is exactly what institutional money and hedge funds planned. They wrote this all out on paper. They've executed it to perfection. And, I understand the people here are probably participating in these big run-ups, but most of the people bought Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners high and sold them low. That is a story, because retail has all but evaporated from these stocks. And really from Bitcoin is mostly institutional money.
Is it? That's crazy to me.
So, with the ETFs, the ETF inflows, I want to go to that reminds me of an article.
I still think the price of Bitcoin's being suppressed, just so you know.
So look at this. I'm going to switch gears to Ethereum. Now, I will preface this by saying I'm not a big fan of Ethereum. I don't own Ethereum. I don't trust it over the long term. That's my personal opinion. Having said that, if I would have bought it at the low, anybody that was buying at the low is killing it right now, because Ethereum is on a huge run. But look why that run is. Ethereum ETFs pull in $8.7 billion in the first year. So they're now a year old. But look, almost $5 billion of that is in the last 2 weeks. So these things went the better part of a year. And in total, they pulled in $3.7 billion. And they just added another $5 billion in the last 2 weeks. And we've seen the run. Let's see if we have Ethereum open. If not, we'll just open it. Okay, so this is SPY, not to sidetrack, but here, this is SPX, which is the same as SPY. You can see the markets are at an all-time high. Right, this is the S&P 500 at an all-time high. This is just a road stop. This is the Qs, which is the NASDAQ, now at an all-time high. This was an all-time high, right? We had a crash. Everybody panicked. Retail sold all along the way. Big money bought all along the way. And what did we have? What we always have, a V-shaped recovery. And now from that V-shaped recovery, we had some consolidation, and now it's heading straight up again to new all-time highs across the board. And Bitcoin did the same exact thing. But Ethereum, let me find Ethereum. Ethereum is on fire. I'm not even going to go all the way to the bottom. I'm just going to go back. This is about a month ago. June 22nd. It's now July 25th. Ethereum's up 76% in basically a month. And from its lows, so it hit its low April 9th, and we said April 8th was the bottom, but actually, and you can see it closed. This was a big green candle, but it started out low. So from the low until now, Ethereum's up 167% since we called the bottom on the market on April 8th. 167%. So, and it was being suppressed, and it was at unnaturally low numbers. 1400 felt like an obvious buy, but my problem is I don't want to hold it for the next 5 years because there's a series of massive changes coming to the programming of how the Ethereum blockchain works. And that makes me uncomfortable. So I missed the run on this. XRP, I actually just bought the dip on XRP. So those are the ones that I have conviction in. Where are you? What are you thinking, George, in the altcoin universe?
It's funny we're talking about that right now. My bags are packed. I wish I had more money because I would get in a lot more other things. I thought Polygon would do better than it's done. I am up on it, but barely. I'm up like 18%. Isn't that crazy? 18% is barely.
Yeah, well, when you look at stuff like Ethereum, I mean, Ethereum's the second largest cryptocurrency, and it's up, what did we just say, 167% in 3 or 4 months. It's crazy.
I think what's going to be interesting is I think that spot for number 2 for XRP and Ethereum is going to make a run. I think that's going to be a very interesting thing to watch until the end of this year.
Let's go to the charts.
And I know the difference. Don't worry. I know it's sizable, but I have a feeling.
Well, here's the thing. To me, I look at this, Ethereum's now, and this is after a gigantic run. Remember, Ethereum just more than doubled. So actually, there was a point in the last year where Ethereum was less than XRP is right now. But we got to compare today to today. Ethereum's at 448. XRP's at $185 billion market cap. That is 10x what it was a year and a half ago. 10x. So all it has to do now is pretty much just a little more than double. And it's competing with Ethereum. So I do think, and really past that, you've got a stable coin, Tether, at 163 billion. And then it falls off a cliff. You've got Binance coin, which is not a highly volatile coin, worth over 100 billion now. Solana almost at 100 billion, 99 million, and that just had a nice run. And then it drops off to 64 billion. And then it drops off down to by number 8 in the cryptocurrency universe, you're at $35 billion. So that's versus $2.3 trillion at number 1, dropping down to $448 billion at number 2, and $185 billion at number 3. So there's a few coins that have proven themselves And, those few coins put together, well, actually just Bitcoin put together is worth more than all the other cryptocurrency in existence, including the stable coins. But I do agree, George. I think that Solana could easily pass Ethereum. I'm not sure there's another one. Drop in the chat if anybody thinks there's another one that has that type of upside.
Okay, so here's where I'm going to tell you the top of crypto for altcoins are. When we're at the top, you want to know what I think it's going to be?
Yes.
When all the other cryptos are more than the market cap of BTC.
So when the Bitcoin dominance falls under 50.
Yep.
You would say it's time to maybe start looking at taking some profits.
Run and wait for the next one. I'm serious. I mean, I think that would make the most sense.
So for me, I think you're right. I think a lot of these are going to run like crazy. The altcoins run even much more viciously than Bitcoin does. So I do think you're right. I think there's going to be big run-ups. There'll be a blow off top, and then then I do think when we look at the altcoins, they'll still potentially follow a crypto winter scenario by and large. But there will be some that are immune from that because there are some coins now that have wide scale adoption. So I will not sell my XRP at that point George is talking about, and I will not.
I hope their XRP will let you do what you can with lend against your Bitcoin.
Yeah, and by the way, JP Morgan, who's CEO and one of the most prominent financial people in the world, has been a Bitcoin hater for years. He compared it to the pet rock, for those of you old enough to remember what that is, and says it's totally useless and worthless. They announced this week they will be accepting Bitcoin as collateral for loans. So that's how much of a 180-degree turn JP Morgan has made. But you're right, George. It would be nice to see, let's expand that to Ethereum and XRP and, maybe Solana. And, I'm not sure which of these are going to end up, falling off a cliff and which ones are going to hold on. To me, stuff like Dogecoin, I don't trust at all. If that thing has a giant run up, that is a true meme coin. It has no value. It has infinite supply. And, that's going to take its big runs up and down.
The costs are just unbelievable right now buying stuff. It's just unfreaking unbelievable. It's just, I'm building
the fees,
a house, right?
Or you're talking about the cost of everything in the world.
Yeah, I'm building a house, and just to do stairs, how you put the wood stairs and you put the nice railing, all that, right? Oh my goodness gracious, Tom. When I say it went through the roof, I mean, I'm not even talking labor. On the stupid stairs, I'm gonna be almost freaking $10,000 in parts and pieces.
Yeah,
and this is just a 1,900 square foot house. This is not a Taj Mahal house by any stretch of imagination. And I'm just sick about it.
The costs of things have gone up in a big way.
I asked my carpet guy how much it would be to do the stairs. And it's literally straight up 12 stairs. Guess how much? 12
stairs of carpet?
Yep.
I don't even want to. I'm sure
$1,100.
I was going to say, I bet it.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's insane.
That's insane.
Be able to carpet half a house for that.
I know you used to, yeah. Well, you know me, I did get a nylon carpet. I didn't get a poly because, I'm breathing that stuff in. So I wanted a good carpet.
Lovak.
Lovak.
So let's go through to do you think Bitcoin is in a multi-year large trend bull market? 74% said yes to that. And we got a lot of votes. We got 81 votes on that. So there's a lot of people that are agreeing with this general narrative that, there's just, I think it's easily observable. There's more catalysts, positive catalysts ahead than there are negative. In fact, I don't even know what the negative catalysts are out there that are significant. We've been through the pain of all of the garbage, even Mt. Gox, which was been held over Bitcoin's head since almost its inception. Everything's all been washed out. We're getting governmental regulations. We're getting, I never got to an article. I think I closed it. I don't have it anymore. I let too much time go by. But I will tell you, the state of Texas bought $10 million in Bitcoin to put in a Bitcoin treasury reserve. They are the first state in the United States to buy and hold Bitcoin. There are several states that have passed legislation that it is their intent to buy Bitcoin. So there's many more to follow. But so in the US, you've got 50 states that are looking potentially to buy Bitcoin. And then you've got the federal government that has already said it's established a Bitcoin strategic reserve. I don't know. I don't think they've moved anything into it yet, but that's coming. So that's just the United States. There's already other countries that are way out ahead of us. There's countries that actually now don't even have their own currency. They use Bitcoin. And I think you'll see more of those coming. Now, those will be small countries for the, until further notice. There's going to be no large company that does that, or country. And we haven't seen the S&P 500. Here, I got an article on one. Okay, Tesla Bitcoin holdings now worth $1.2 billion after 30% Bitcoin price rally in Q2. So to put this in perspective, because Tesla is a Fortune 500 company, it's an S&P company, it's a NASDAQ company, so it's in all the major indexes. They own 11,509 Bitcoin. That makes them the 10th largest holder of Bitcoin of any publicly traded company in the world. So what I'm saying is the entire rest of the 500 biggest companies in the world have not yet bought their first Bitcoin. And if you think they're never going to buy Bitcoin, I guess you're entitled to think that. But I think differently. I would say 5 years from now, if you look at the S&P 500, it will be somewhere between 90 and 99% of the companies have some amount of Bitcoin on their balance sheet. All right, now I'm not talking about...
It needs to happen sooner than later.
And I think it will, and we're taking steps. They were the biggest, the Genius Act, which basically put guardrails around stable coins. That was the single biggest barrier to entry. So there's a lot of other legislation floating around in the US and around the world. And I think you're going to see a lot of it pass, right? They're going to fight over the details. And, it sounds like I'm rooting for regulation, and I'm not a big fan of regulation. Right. I think most of us are not big fans of regulation, but no regulation creates uncertainty. If you don't know how the government's going to ultimately regulate something as a business, you just stay away from it. So by getting reasonable regulations, it's providing clarity and it's opening the door to all of these companies entering this space. So I think you're going to see companies enter this space I want to go to Midway. Thank you very much. Appreciate the super chat and longtime member. Bhutan will have basically unlimited gigawatts of hydropower in the near future, and BitDeer already has a partnership with Bhutan's sovereign wealth fund. BitDeer's power pipeline might be truly amazing. And that's one of the reasons why BitDeer is talking about. Here, let me go straight to the source. BitDeer's talking about getting to 40 exahash by Q4 of 2025. So they're talking about leapfrogging almost everybody. That's even gonna. Riot does not have big expansion plans for the rest of 2025. They have an awful lot of access to energy, but they're looking to get to 38-ish exahash. So if BitDeer is able to do what they say, then it will only be IREN, CleanSpark, and Marathon that have more exahash than BitDeer. They will have jumped all the way into 4th place out of all the Bitcoin miners. So, and like Midway's pointing out, their access to power is enormous. There are places in this world that have a lot of hydropower that goes to waste. So, not only is their access enormous, but it's very reasonably priced. And Midway saying BitDeer will have the megawatts available in 2026 to pass even Marathon and CleanSpark in exahash if they can raise enough money. So yeah, I think putting themselves in the top, then you're gonna have 5 companies that have kind of distinguished themselves, and a couple, 3 or 4 more chasing behind. Right? If we look. So if I go to exahash, here's where things, and thanks again, Midway. Here's where things stand right now as of June 30th. And we're almost at the end of July, so we're about to get July reports that I expect to be better than the June reports because we had a big dip in the difficulty level for half the month. So, but this is talking about exahash. Marathon's at 57. CleanSpark and IREN both announced they got to 50 at the end of the month, so they're tied for second. Then it drops off to 35.5 with Riot. That's 4th place. So if BitDeer can get to 40, that would round out the top 5. Because after that, you're at CIFR at 16.8. And, BitDeer, we're talking about getting to 40. You're at Hive at 11. And I'm going to show you what their plans are. Bitfarms is at around 20. But they're not going to grow it anymore. They've already said for the rest of 2025, no more growth. They do have a thriving Bitcoin operation, but they're not putting any more. Sorry, I couldn't hear that one.
Sorry, it's okay. I'm mumbling.
Oh, well, that would be why. So if you look, you've got. I'm going to go through them. So here's CIFR. They've got plans to get to 23 exahash. They really haven't outlined plans past that. That doesn't mean they're not going to go past that. But even if they get to where they're going, they're just not going to be in the neighborhood of that top 5. You've got Hive. They're looking to go from, this says 11 exahash to 25 exahash. But I will tell you, in the middle, they put out a press release that they're at 12 exahash. And now here, 2 days ago, they put out a press release that they're at 13 exahash. So they are growing rapidly. This is a company, again, I just don't understand its valuation. It boggles my mind. They talk about the fact that they will imminently, by the end of August, they're looking to be at 18 exahash. And where do they say it? Trying to find where they say it, but essentially they're looking to get to, well, they're looking to get to 25 exahash, as they said right here, and that's in November of 2025. So they already went from their most recent investor presentation. They've gone from 11 to 12 to 13 exahash. They're looking to get to 18 by the end of next month and 25 by the end of the year. So, they're looking to stay relevant, and their market cap is so drastically. Here's your two small market caps. You have Bitfarms, which is on a massive run to the upside. It's up 53% in the last month, and it's at a market cap of $692 million. So to put things in perspective, you go to we'll go to an IREN. They're at 4.2 billion. Right? So the big boys are, between 3 and they've pulled back. I'm going to go to the biggest one. Marathon has the largest market cap and has for quite some time, and it is down to $6 billion. So for those of you who think there's not room for Marathon to 5x or 10x, I mean, if 5x still makes them only the size of CoreWeave. So there's a lot of room to the upside, but they're at $6 billion. You go to a Bitfarms, they're one-tenth the size of that. They're at $692 million. And then you go to a Hive, they're at $500 million. The other thing that I will say about Hive, because they said something else important in this press release, as Hive advances its fully funded expansion strategy, somewhere in here, they specifically say they are fully funded to get to 25 exahash. Here. Hive is delivering growth at a remarkable rate, commented Aidan Killick, president and CEO, and we remain on track for 18 exahash at an estimated efficiency of 18.5 joules per terahash. So that's a dramatic increase. A year ago, their fleet was at 30 joules per terahash. And then the end of August, and then 25 exahash and roughly 17.5 joules per terahash. So that would put them in the top 3. You only have IREN and CleanSpark that have a fleet that's more efficient than that. So they would become, this would make them a top tier, maybe I'll say a second tier, but one of the big players in Bitcoin mining. And they're not being treated that way. They're 1/12 the market cap of Marathon. Now, I'm not saying they should be the same market cap as Marathon. That's ridiculous. But 1/12? You guys decide for yourself. There's currently, so somebody was saying trillions on the sideline. I don't know if this has anything to do with your conversation, but there's currently $7 trillion in money market funds in the United States. That's like all-time record territory. One more article before we wrap it up. And I don't know if we're going to get to 100. We need help. We're at 95 likes. If you could be so kind.
5.
Okay. Thumbs up. Hit the like button if you would be willing to do so. We're at 95. 100's our goal for the live stream. 2 times in 4 years we didn't get there. Is this number 3, George?
Well, that means it's going to go straight to the moon.
That's exactly what's happened. Every time we hit a low point, Bitcoin goes on a tear. So here's a couple just other things to look at real quick. Crypto inflows surged to $60 billion year to date, outpacing private equity. That from JP Morgan. So when I say adoption's happening, that's adoption. It's outpacing private equity. That's not even the one I was looking for. Oh, here's another one. Just a couple to mention along the way. Oh, by the way, on Wednesday, Square begins rollout of Bitcoin payments for sellers, targeting full availability by 2026. So by 2026, everybody that owns a Square is going to be able to accept crypto or Bitcoin, and they're going to be using the Lightning Network. So every single person using Square can now pay in Bitcoin by the end of 2026, they're saying. So that's some massive adoption ahead. I mean, these are just article after article after article. Goldman Sachs and Bank of New York Mellon team up for tokenized money market funds. Like I said, unprecedented amount of money on the sidelines in money markets. Well, Goldman Sachs and Bank of New York Mellon are looking to tokenize that. So that's more adoption. That's more money coming into the crypto universe. It's just everywhere you turn. Oh, here. Well, this is the one to end on, George, and then we'll do a poll with it. So, crypto, long-term crypto bull market, people are thinking yes. I'm going to put the poll up, and I will read this to you. Hey, that's 100 likes. Thank you, everybody. Much appreciated. We got there.
Means, guess what?
We had to
another week.
Will crypto hit $50 trillion in the next 5 years? And I don't pick that out of the blue. Dan Tapiero projects crypto economy hitting $50 trillion.
That's a lot of money.
Launching a $500 million fund under a new firm. So Tapiero, who previously projected a $10 trillion crypto market, adjusted his forecast after seeing the success of Circle's IPO and Deribit's acquisition by Coinbase. So here's what to know. Dan Tapiero is merging 10T, so his original company was $10 trillion, and a company called One Roundtable into a brand called 50T, short for $50 trillion, predicting the digital asset market will reach $50 trillion in the next decade. So he's actually, I said 5 years, he's saying 10 years. 50T is launching a $500 million growth equity fund.
Okay.
Recent.
I gotta sneak out.
All right. Well, we're wrapping it up. This was our last article. Thank you, George, for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.
50T is launching a $500 million growth equity fund to support later stage blockchain and Web3 companies, with first close planned for Q4 2025. So this is yet another company coming into the space. And I just want to show you, I said this would be the last one, but I want to show you one more. Might not be able to find it. Okay, so here, this isn't the one I was looking for, but I'll end on this because here's a company hedging their bets beyond belief. This is Citibank. So here's the headline: Bitcoin to hit 135K by year end in their base case forecast, and 199K in their bullish scenario. Why not 200K? Don't know. That's their bullish scenario. So, but if you look in the bank's most optimistic scenario, Bitcoin could reach $199,000 by the end of the year, while a more bearish setup pulls the forecast down to $64,000. So to me, come on. So what you're saying is Bitcoin's going to finish somewhere between 64,000 and 199,000. Well, I think we all pretty much knew that without Citibank having to tell us that. So that's a ridiculous spread. Pick a spot, right? No one's holding you to it. What's your forecast? Now they do say their base case forecast is 135,000. So they're very bullish. That's a base case. They have bear case scenarios that are worse than that. So most people are picking much higher numbers than this now. And again, 200,000, I've come across a multitude of articles talking about, $200,000 for Bitcoin by the end of this year. So we'll see if that happens or not. Will crypto hit $50 trillion in the next 5 years? So actually 68% of you are saying yes. And it's just at 4 trillion right now. So that's a big jump, but 5 years is a long time. And we have been gaining momentum massively. So I think there's a chance. This wouldn't be my target number, but I certainly think there's a chance that that could happen. So I'll leave you with that thought, and we'll take a look at where Bitcoin is at. So Bitcoin's hanging out at around $117,000. And if any of us would have said in the last 6 months that, Bitcoin was going to be kind of hanging around at $117,000, I think we all would have been okay with that. So I feel like we're in a very good place. I feel like, whether we're going to go retest 112 or just go straight up from here, I don't think there's big downside scenarios ahead. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Hopefully Bitcoin has a good weekend, and hopefully all of you guys have a great weekend. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thanks for the chat. Thanks for the likes. Special thanks for the super chats, and special thanks to all of our members. And to the members, we will see you guys Tuesday after the market closes. So thank you everybody, and have a great weekend.